Step 1. Wash. Start with a wash of a base color. Here are some options below. Burnt sienna, which is a versatile color. It enhances flesh tones. Red equals warm undertones. And blue equals cool undertones with dimension. For the background of my picture, I chose to do the sienna brown. So I'm mixing up an orange and blue to make that orangey brown. You're going to start by applying your color to your paper. Then what you can't see on screen is that I'm grabbing water and adding water to the edges to blend it out into the rest of the paper. You're going to want to find spots that are darker and spots that are lighter according to your reference photo. Step 3. The background. Blocking colors you see in the background, using water to blur them together. After your drawing is finished, start by blocking in the colors you see in the background. In just a moment, I will begin to show you how to blur those colors together using water. Here is when you can see that I am taking the color from my palette, applying it to the picture in the background, only where I can see it in the picture. Then I'm going to get a little bit of water, and I'm going to gently tap around the edges where I just put that wet paint to blur it into the other colors that are already there. You will do this for each step, every color that you're applying in the background. Make sure you pay close attention to see how I'm doing this. Step 4. The midground. Begin to block in colors of the midground. Then add in tints and shades of the midground. Make sure to include the floor. Here you can see I am going through and I'm painting all the sections of the midground with just a solid color based off the photograph I'm looking at. Paint all the details of the midground, even if it is overlapping another item. Even though the ground is actually part of the foreground, we're going to paint it with the midground because other items might be covering over the top of the ground later on. And when painting, you always paint back to the front. Now it is time to add the details to the midground to make these items look real. To do this, we're going to use tints and shades, or in other words, whites and blacks. I like to start with the shades first, so I go in with the black and add all the shadows. Let's take a closer look. After referencing the photo, I know that the shadow is at the bottom of all of these poles. So I'm going to use the brown that was already painted and the black to blend the shadow at the bottom. Once the shadow is blended, I can go in with white and add the highlights at the top. Watch closely once more. I start with the brown, then I go in with the black for the shadow, blending it together, and then finish with the white highlight on the top. Notice that I do this in small sections. I don't want the paint to dry before I can blend the shadow. Let's see how to do this on a different object. Here is my flag. I use the same steps as I did before. Make sure to use your reference photo to find out where the shadows and highlights are supposed to go. Make sure to use the base color and your shadow color together to blend. In the case of the flag, mine is a white and gray. When I get to the red, it will be a red and a dark red. With the blue, it is a lighter blue and a dark navy blue. Step 6. Color blocking. Begin to block in colors, starting with light to medium values. For this step, it is okay if you do not want to mix your own colors. This is just a base layer before we add the details. However, you are allowed to mix it if you need to see the difference between two different shades, such as in the brown. I needed a lighter and a darker brown to see the different shapes. Notice that I started with light to medium shades. I saved the darker shades for last. Step 7. Painting the details. Work from the back to the front. Develop each element by adding shadows and highlights. Use a wet on dry technique to avoid color blending when adding additional details. When working on the details, I like to have my paint palette set up and ready before beginning to paint. I will have my medium base color, my tan color for my horse, and then a lighter for the highlights and a darker shade for the shadows. No matter what element you are painting, you're going to use the same technique of your base color with your highlight and shadow colors. When painting these details, I like to start with the base color, in this case red, and then I like to go in with the shadow color first. Identify all the darkest parts of the object using your reference photo, and then finally I move on to the highlights. Watch as the highlights make the biggest difference in making the object look real. Continue to use this technique throughout your entire picture on all of your details. Shadows are important, especially when working with fabric. When painting the face of my person, I'm not going to worry too much about all of the facial features. With her face so small in the picture, I'm going to focus on just the shadows and the highlights to make it look like a face. Just like with the face, small objects don't need a ton of detail. You need to give the illusion that the detail is there, but not really put in all the work to make those tiny little details. To give the illusion that the harness on this horse has diamonds to it, I'm simply just going to use the side of my brush and gently tap the colors that I see. The use of tints and shades is extremely important in your painting. This is what's going to give the illusion that these objects are real. Look at all the different shades of brown that I'm using simply around the feet. This is extremely important to making it look three-dimensional. When it comes to painting hair on the human or the horse, I'm going to use small strokes, but make sure I'm still using the different tints and shades of the color. Now I'm going to go back in and add the finishing touches to the ground floor, including the dirt that's being kicked up from the horse. This is going to help with the action and movement in the artwork.